Hello, Genie OK Boomer here. Welcome to this week's vlog. This week I want to talk about the Uvalde shooting, or the Robb Elementary School shooting. We all know what happened. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on what happened. We all know. I do have some points to make about it, and then I want to expand it to a wider subject. Now, this is going to be kind of difficult because I could talk for hours on this. I really could. I spent some time just trying to figure a way to organize a presentation, and ultimately I wasn't able to do that. So this might seem a little stream of consciousness, but they're all points that I think are important. One thing I will mention is that there is no, well, people are saying there's an epidemic of these school shootings. One of the things I'm going to talk about is that from 1903 till 1966, there were exactly three school shootings, and they all involved just one person being shot. It was just somebody having a beef against somebody else. I think in one case it was a teacher, in another case it was just a student, but was never one of these things that we're seeing today where you have all these shootings taking place because of these disturbed kids. That's what I want to talk about, how that happened. And I also want to talk about the Uvalde police department, because it's not just the shootings, it's how this could have happened. My impression when I read about this originally, when I first heard the story, was that this kid came up to the school, rushed inside, and then just started shooting. It's not the way it was. So I want to give you a couple of headlines here. This is from the Wall Street Journal. Uvalde shooter fired outside school for 12 minutes before entering. It took the police department, I think, 15 minutes to get there. Well, I'll get to that in a second, but he was outside for 12 minutes before he even went into this school, and yet he was able to enter through an unlocked door. I mean, nobody had any sense to, well, why was the door unlocked anyways? And this is what I'll be talking about, because when I was a kid, when I was a child, the school doors were unlocked. I mean, anybody could walk into the school, and we didn't have these school shootings. That's going to be the main theme for today, but I want to talk about the police department first, because they really screwed up, because 12 minutes outside before even going into the school, and then once inside the school, this kid was in there for 40 minutes shooting these children in this classroom, and the police outside and the parents begging, or citizens begging the police to go in, and the police wouldn't. When a citizen wanted to go in, the police stopped him. He had his own gun, I believe, and he wanted to go in. The police stopped him, and the police themselves, they did nothing. And I read that one police officer said, well, because he didn't want to go in because he could get shot. I mean, can you imagine? And here is the real capper. Here is the real icing on the cake. Because where is the Uvalde Police Department? Well, here's the map. 4 minutes. 4 minutes away. The police station was 4 minutes away. It took them 15 minutes to get there, and then another 40 minutes to take out this crazy kid. So we have to ask ourselves, how many people? Well, nobody would have died, probably. At least no kids. Maybe a cop would have gotten shot if they would have gotten there before he went into the school, when he was outside for 12 minutes and the police were only 4 minutes away. That's number one. Number two, if they're only 4 minutes away, again, how could this kid be inside the school for 40 minutes, just being able to do all this stuff? So that is a real shame. I hope the police will reform their police department, or else fire a lot of cops, or at least the chief of police. I don't know how this could happen. I really can't. But that's enough on the screw up of the police department. I want to get to this took place in Texas. there was a press conference. Governor Abbott, the governor of Texas, gave a press conference. Well, here's the headline, because now we're going to get to my main point. Here's the headline: school shootings aren't caused by faulty gun laws, but by the collapse of the family. Because every time one of these things happens, we hear calls for gun control. And I don't understand. This was going to be another subject, another vlog. Maybe I'll touch on it now. But if our liberal friends, if their goal is to at least not increase the number of guns, don't they realize that every time they call for gun control, people run out and buy guns? If they really want to reduce the number of guns, or at least slow the increase, then they need to stop talking about gun control. And I would also not give such publicity to these school shootings. At least not name the shooter. Don't name the shooter, because some of these people, these crazy kids, I think they want to make a name for themselves. But now let me get to the meat of my point for today, which I'll begin doing by quoting from this article. So here's the headline again: school shootings aren't caused by faulty gun laws, by the collapse of the family. And to me, that means an absence of fathers. This denigration of fathers, just men in general, but father. I wonder if you've seen this commercial. It's so offensive to me that whenever it comes on, I turn off the sound. I just don't want to listen to it. It's for Buick. It's for Buick cars. And you have, now Alexa works, the Amazon app, Alexa, or whatever you want to call it, works with at least these Buicks. So it starts out with the mom saying, Alexa, start the car, because they're taking the kids to the big game or something. And then they're in the car, the father is driving, and he says, boy, this Alexa's really great. And then the wife says, it's not an Alexa, it's a Buick. And then he says something else, they have to stop off and get some snacks to bring to the game, to share with everybody. And father says, this Alexa will get us there in no time. And I think the daughter says, Dad, it's a Buick. And then he says, don't make me turn this Alexa around, or something like that. And the son says, it's not an Alexa, it's a Buick. But imagine the other way around, that the father calls for says, Alexa, start the car starts, they're driving in the car, and the mom says, boy, this Alexa's really great. And the father says, no, darling, this is a Buick. And then yada, 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 every time the mother saying it's an Alexa, and the kids correcting the mother. Can you imagine that? Feminists would have a fit over something like that. But it's okay to have stupid men, stupid fathers, and that is one of the problems. And there's another, one thing they don't say, I'm going to show one thing in common of most of these disturbed boy shooters, but there is one thing they all have in common, not just 80% or 75%, but all of them, I suspect, is that they all went to public school. They were all educated in these public schools, where very often you have these liberal teachers, these liberal feminist women teachers, and they declared a war on boys. I remember reading one story, I covered this in an earlier vlog, where a teacher, female teacher, feminist teacher, said, I don't call on boys in my class when the kids, I ask a question or something, the kids raise their hand to answer. I never call on a boy. I will never call on a boy. I will only call on girls. And then they eliminate playgrounds sometimes, and they took away dodgeball, and in baseball they have t-ball instead of you throw the ball and you have to hit it. So the t-ball, it just sits on the ball sits on a little stand or something, and the kids, you can't miss. It's on a stand. It's like a giant golf tee. So they take away competition. They don't understand that boys are fidgety. When I was a kid, I was constantly looking out the window. The girls would be nice and quiet. I used to get we used to get marks on for citizenship, and it was, you know, A is the best, E is the worst. I always got E's. I was terrible in citizenship. I was a behavior problem, I frankly admit it, because for one reason, I think the statute of limitations has run out from when I was a child in Detroit to now my age. So I guess they're not going to put the cuffs on. But boys are different from girls, and a lot of these teachers are raising, these female feminist teachers are raising boys as, or treating them as defective girls, and filling them up with drugs, with attention disorder drugs and things, where they're just being normal boys. Boys do not act like girls. I'm sorry, my liberal friends, but, and any mother knows this, boys and girls are different, and there are only two sexes, by the way. Just want to get that straight, because some people have problems with that these days on the left, and I think most conservatives realize that there are only two sexes determined by biology. It's how you're born, the chromosomes. If you got two X chromosomes, you're a girl. If you got an X and a Y, then you're a boy. Sorry. Well, I'm not sorry, but that's the way it is. Anyways, I was going to quote from this article, so let me quote from the article, and then I'll expand some more on the point. So here we go. At a press conference Wednesday in the aftermath of the school shooting in Uvalde, Texas, Governor Greg Abbott almost said something profound. Almost. Asked by reporters about gun laws in Texas, and by the way, it's asked, not axed. Kids, if you're trying to learn English in schools, and that's probably pretty hard in a public school. Oh, so that was, I was going to say, these kids were all educated in public schools. So if you don't want your kid, if you want to lessen the chance that your kid's going to be, or at least your boy's going to be a mass murderer when he grows up, homeschool him or put him in private school. Believe me, you'll be happier, and your kid will be smarter too. For one thing, he'll be taught how to read by phonics, the way I was, and that's. I remember when I learned phonics, and I learned a little arithmetic by rote, and then when you got a little older, you had story problems. Then when I was in the 7th grade, we got something called the new math. That made absolutely no sense to me. Thank God I was already up to the 7th grade, and then the family moved, and I went to another school where they didn't have this stupid new math. So I can add and subtract, barely, but I can do it. Anyways, at a press conference Wednesday afternoon in the aftermath of the school shooting at Uvalde, Texas, Governor Greg Abbott almost said something profound. Almost. Asked by reporters about gun laws in Texas, Abbott responded by talking about the need for more, quote, mental health resources, unquote, a catch-all term often bandied about by Republican politicians in the wake of mass shootings like the one in Uvalde, in which 19 elementary school kids and 2 teachers were killed by a deeply disturbed 18-year-old. Abbott, though, began by going in a different direction with his response. He noted, and this is going to be my main point, he noted that 18-year-olds have been able to buy rifles in Texas for more than 60 years. And then Abbott asked, quote, why is it that in the majority of these 60 years we did not have school shootings and we do now? Unquote, which is going to be my point. What has changed? Because whether he meant it or not, Abbott's comments approached the heart of the matter. Texas has been awash in firearms of all kinds for 2 centuries. So why is it that only now, over the past 2 decades, do we see the kind of mass shootings we saw this week in Texas? Abbott and our liberal friends can pretend not to know, though I don't think our liberal friends are pretending. I think they know, they just don't want to admit it because it changes their whole worldview. Continue with the article here. Abbott can pretend not to know, but I suspect that he, along with most everyone else in America, knows perfectly well the answer to that question. It has nothing to do with gun technology or gun control laws, and everything to do with our corrupt culture, and especially with the collapse of the family. And now let's get into Ramos's family. This is the shooter, Salvador Rolando Ramos. So let's, or Ramos, whatever. Indeed, the Uvalde shooter was a walking advertisement for the moral bankruptcy of modern America and the hollowing out of the American home. Salvador Rolando Ramos was apparently raised without a father, and until recently lived with a single mother who reportedly struggled with drug addiction. Neighbors recall blow-ups between her and Ramos, and police occasionally being called to the house. So if that's true, then the police knew about this kid. They knew about him for a while before this terrible event. For the past few months, Ramos has been living with his grandmother. This would be the grandmother who called the cops after he shot her in the face and left her for dead. Ramos has been described by former classmates in news reports as a loner who was bullied over a speech impediment, got into fights at school, and took solace in video games and chatting with strangers online. It was to one of these online strangers that he apparently, get my next page here, bear with me, confessed or hinted at what he was planning to do just before the attack on the elementary school. A broken home, no father or father figure in his life, no church or community of any kind, no real friends except those he met through social media. Here we have in brief sketch not just a profile of a school shooter, but an indictment of our entire culture. It was the same in Parkland and Sandy Hook and many other places. Something is very wrong out there, and it is manifesting itself in the proliferation of mass shootings by alienated young men. Politicians and pundits, I'm getting near the end here, just bear with me. Politicians and pundits don't want to talk about these things, partly because there's no law we can pass to fix it. I would say it's it's also because it's politically incorrect, and I guess it's going to offend maybe enough women to affect the women's vote. It's just politically correct, so you don't want to say anything about, well, I'm going to say it. Well, I'll say it in a minute. Let me finish this. If it's not a problem with an obvious solution, it's not a problem with an obvious solution. But they need to start talking all the same. We need to confront collectively the social maladies that create young men who murder indiscriminately. And chief among these maladies is the collapse of family and community. Our leaders, though, bear special responsibility for making these cultural problems worse. Ramos had just turned 16 years old when the COVID lockdowns and school closures began. Those policies, enacted by leaders who don't really care about the weak and powerless, made all the problems teenagers like Ramos face unfathomably worse. Governor Abbott says he doesn't know why we have school shootings today when we did not have them 60 years ago. But he knows, we all know, and I especially know. Well, anybody my age knows, but now I'm going to talk about myself. When I was a kid, 10, 11 years old, I was going to elementary school. I was a Cub Scout. I was in the Cub Scouts. One of my prized possessions was my little Cub Scout knife. I love that knife, and I love that knife so much. You know, you could whittle wood, and it was just cool to have. You know, you're a kid and you're a boy, and that's the difference between boys and girls, because I don't know about little girls carrying knives or being thrilled with a knife. It's a difference between boys. I don't think the brownies, the girls' equivalent of the Cub Scouts, and now I think they put them all together, and the girls can be Cub Scouts. So boys can't be boys anymore. It's another problem. It's another vlog for another day. But the reason I mentioned the Cub Scout knife is because I liked it so much. I took it to school with me every day. Elementary school, I took my knife with me, and no one thought anything of it. There was no problem. Kid on my block, down the street, well, my friend, Johnny, we were about 8 years old at the time. His brother was 12. His father bought him a 22 rifle, 22 caliber rifle, 12-year-old kid, 12 years old, and built him a target, a backstop, a wooden backstop in the backyard. And after dinner, the kid would go out and he would shoot stuff right on a city block in Detroit in the backyard. No one thought anything about it. In fact, I used to take my little Cub Scout knife, and I used to like to go to the backstop and dig the bullets out. I thought it was really cool to have these bullets. Another thing I don't think little girls would do. So the point is, there were plenty of, just like Abbott, Governor Abbott is saying about Texas, there were plenty of guns in Detroit. They were all over the place, and we didn't have these kinds of shootings, this kind of crime. In fact, Detroit, the whole city, was much safer, Detroit, than it is today. It was a beautiful city. I have such fond memories of my childhood in Detroit, of what the city was like, and it's not that way anymore. And what has changed, and I think it's changed especially in the black community, where you have, I think it's a 75% unwed, single motherhood rate, kids without fathers, and boys need fathers. I can't imagine not having a father in my life to go out and do guy stuff with, play baseball. And that's the other thing I want to get to. Well, to play sports with and to build stuff and just a male figure in the house, just to see a father leave in the morning to work and come home. In fact, I read an article about that too many years ago, that if a father, doesn't matter how low paying the job is, if a child is in, especially a boy, in a two-parent home, that would be two parents of opposite sexes, male and female, and male head of household. That's very important. I'll get to that in a minute. But you see the father going off to work and the mother staying with the kid. You don't have these latchkey kids where you get put in a daycare center. So my mom was there, and I'm going to probably get a lot of feedback from feminists, but the fact is, I saw two polls, at least two, could be three, but at least two polls of women. They are more unhappy today than they were years ago, than ever, in these polls, more unhappy than ever. When I was a child, women were they were happier. That's just from what these polls show. When I was a kid, the mothers were always there. It was very rare. You felt sorry for a family where the mother had to work. Now they have to, and this is what the feminists have to understand. Every woman doesn't have a chance to become the chairman of General Motors. I mean, good for her, Mary Barr, but the chairwoman of General Motors. But you're talking about showing people where to find the wrenches in Home Depot, or a greeter in stacking shelves in a supermarket, or a checkout girl, or helping people in Walmart. They're not glamorous jobs, and the women doing those jobs, I have to believe that I'm sure that most of them would rather be with their children than stacking cans on shelves in Walmart. Correct me if you want to, you could, but the polls show that women are more unhappy these days. This could be a subject for another vlog, so I'm not going to go too far on that. But the point is that guns were common, but there was no, I would never, who would think of somebody stabbing, taking a knife and stabbing a kid when I was a child? It wouldn't happen. And that's why I want to show you these photos now, a couple. These are gun clubs in schools. Now, these are high school kids. So here's one photo. This is Portland, Oregon. These are all liberal cities. That's why I picked these out special, these photos. So this is Portland, Oregon. This is, I think it's 1931. I could be wrong, because here's another one. This is Huntington, New York. This next one, this is New York too. I forget where in New York. It's a high school in New York though. And well, you can see these kids, and you can see they all have different rifles because, well, let me show you one more photo. This one, it's a women's team. It's the University of Syracuse, also in New York. So a liberal state, a very blue state, and you have all these, or you had all these gun clubs. And I believe that, well, I don't believe, I know, I saw some articles, I didn't want to fill it, maybe I'll put one up, but gun clubs are coming back into fashion again. So you're going to have, fortunately, well, I mean, you have places like Switzerland where guns are all over the place, and you don't have this kind of crime. So the kids would, I mean, I couldn't dig up the photo, I saw one some time ago, kids on the subway, New York subways with rifles, taking them to school. But these kids taking their guns, these rifles, taking them into the school, never mind one kid, like this Ramos kid, disturbed kid, who shot all these people. Look how many kids you have here taking guns into schools, and no problem. They would bring them into the school, and then they would put them in a locker, you know, instead of carrying it around all day. And then at the end, then it was time for the riflery class or the gun club after school. Then they would retrieve them from the locker, and then they would go shoot and have, shoot targets and have fun. Shoot targets, not each other. But now it's different. And you talk about mental health and drugs and gun control, and that it's very simple. Just put everything back the way it was when I was a kid. That's why one reason I get back to women again being unhappy these days. There was, you see these things about the low unemployment and about women leaving the workforce. Well, sorry, I think that's a good thing. These women who are in the workforce, most of them are because of economic policies that have created inflation and destroyed our currency, the US dollar, to the point where women have to work. But they don't have. I remember a story of a woman, vice president, Coca-Cola, and she resigned. She was driving home over a bridge one day. She was driving home from work, and she just suddenly broke into tears because she was going home to her kids, and she missed her kids, and she realized she didn't like being the vice president, even though it's a lot of this, I think, is women, feminists. I don't think they like women. I think they're jealous of men, and they don't value what women do or traditional female roles. They want to be like men. And if you want to be like men or do what men does, that means you must value what men do more than what women do, and that's wrong. And I could say society in a way is, if I were president, if I run for president, I would probably create a cabinet position, a secretary of motherhood, and celebrate. We don't celebrate enough what women do, traditional womanhood, and that could be a problem. That could be why it creates this impression that what men do is better than what women do. What women, they raise the next generation. Whatever this generation turns out to be, this next one coming up, it's women. It's really true, the saying, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. And it really is true. And apparently this vlog is turning out to be longer than I wanted it to be, but it's an important subject, so I hope at least some of you are still with me, and that those of you who are still with me will stick around a little bit more. As I go into the end, I really am getting to the end now, so just bear with me a little longer. Just one more headline. Here it is. Guns aren't radically deadlier than they were 50 years ago, but our sick culture is. And it really is. I just read you that article before, that earlier one. This just makes the same point, that that was about the breakup of the family, actually, the lack of traditional families. Our liberal friends hate well, that's why they're in denial, because they hate the very idea of a family. They think men aren't needed, that fathers aren't needed, especially feminists. They are really into women just picking up, going to the sperm bank and making a withdrawal, or adopting, adopting a kid without having a father, just a single mother, because it would be, cool to have a kid or whatever. But then not being there to take care of the kid, to raise the kid. It's, you drop the kid off at a daycare center, let someone else deal with the kid all day as you go off to work. And, well, we're seeing the results. And they don't want to admit the results. They don't want to take responsibility for the results. But these are the results. And we're going to be forced to live with them unless we take some, well, one of the precautions we're going to have is we're going to have to lock the schoolhouse doors. We're going to have, this is another problem, gun-safe zones. It's another killing in a gun-safe zone where the teachers were, as I understand it, they were not allowed to be armed. So at the very least, you're going to have the teachers be armed, or have police or at least security guards, somebody armed in the school. And yeah, our liberal friends don't even want that. They want to defund the police, and where there are police or security guards in the schools, they want them taken out. So these are the results. These are the results that one gets when one adopts these kinds of insane policies. So that's our sick culture. It begins with a disrespect for life, because it was something else when I was a kid, which it was before Roe v. Wade. It was before Roe v. Wade just made, the figure I read, 63 million lives taken. And it really is. They are lives being taken, and there's too many people don't recognize that, and you're going to see how callous the attitude is towards the sanctity of life, of innocent life. Of course, I have no problem with the death penalty, but there's the 14th Amendment. You get due process, innocent till proven guilty. You really have to. And even in an abortion, Ronald Reagan said the same thing. Self-defense, if the mother's life is at stake, then of course you can have an abortion, because if it's self-defense, it's a homicide, put it that way. To me, abortion is homicide. Homicides are justifiable. In some cases, there are justifiable homicides, and then there are others that aren't. But anyways, I'm going to show you, this is the very final thing. This is a woman talking. It's a mother with her baby in her arms, and this is her attitude. This is her attitude. Just watch.
I could have killed you, but I chose to let you live. I chose to let her live. As in, I had a choice. All women should have a choice.
Do you realize what you just said? Killed. I cannot wrap my brain around this, no matter how I look at it.
If you don't want to use the word kill, that's fine. If you want to use the word kill, that's fine. When you use hand sanitizer, you kill germs. I could have simply chosen to let you not exist, but I let you exist. I let you form past the zygote phase.
Is that better?
So yes, I realize what I just said, and I stand by it. If you want to get an abortion, get an abortion. If you don't want to get an abortion, don't get an abortion, but don't try to oppress my rights.
That's the attitude. That's the attitude of a lot of people in the society, including mothers. And then you wonder why we have these school shootings now when we didn't have them when I was young. And I'll just leave it there. Thanks for stopping by. If you stuck around this long, thanks for sticking around this long. If you have any, if you want to spend a little more time, if you have any questions, comments, suggestions for future topics, there's a comment section below the video. You could share this video with anybody you think would like it. You could subscribe. I love getting new subscribers. And most of all, come back and see me again. I would love to see all of you again. Look forward to seeing all of you again. And until I do see all of you again, bye.